The discovery that changed everything. Captain Marcus Kane stood frozen as the massive shape emerged from the cosmic dust cloud. His crew aboard the exploration vessel Pathfinder had been investigating strange energy readings in the Kepler sector when they stumbled upon something that shouldn't exist. The object floating before them was unmistakably a warship, but not like any design in the known galaxy. "Captain, this is impossible," whispered Lieutenant Commander Julia Torres from the science station. Her fingers trembled as she ran scan after scan, each result more bewildering than the last. The ship was over 3 kilometers long, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb and reflect light. Simultaneously, the bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of life support systems. Every crew member stared at the view screen in disbelief. This wasn't just any ancient vessel they'd discovered. The markings, the design, the energy signature, everything matched the legendary descriptions from Earth's oldest military archives. "Sir," came the shaky voice of Ensign Robert Mitchell from communications. "I'm picking up automated distress signals. They're in ancient Terran military code." Captain Kane felt his blood run cold. According to every historical record, humanity had never built warships of this magnitude. Earth's first space fleet consisted of small patrol vessels and cargo haulers. Yet here was a massive battle cruiser bearing human markings that predated their official space exploration by centuries. The ship's name was barely visible through the cosmic wear, U.S. Dominion. Kane had heard whispers of this vessel in classified briefing stories, dismissed as military mythology. Legend claimed it was humanity's first true warship, built in secret during the early days of space colonization. But that was impossible. Humans barely had the technology to reach Mars back then. "Captain," Torres called out, her voice filled with scientific excitement mixed with dread, "I'm detecting life signs aboard the vessel. Faint, but definitely present. Whatever's on that ship has been alive for over 200 years. The implications hit Kane like a physical blow. If the Dominion truly existed, if it had been floating in space for centuries with a living crew, then everything humanity believed about their own history was a lie. More terrifying still was the question of why such a powerful warship had been hidden from galactic records. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Mitchell announced, his face pale. "It's coming from the Dominion." The main screen flickered, static clearing to reveal a figure in an ancient Earth military uniform. The man's eyes were sharp, despite his apparent age, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command. "This is Fleet Admiral Nathan Cross of the United Earth Sovereignty Vessel Dominion. To whoever receives this message, you have found humanity's greatest secret. We have been waiting 2 centuries for contact. The time has come to reveal the truth about humanity's real purpose in the galaxy." "Secrets of the ancient fleet," the transmission continued as Admiral. Cross stepped closer to his view screen. Behind him, the bridge of the Dominion was unlike anything Captain Kane had ever seen. Advanced holographic displays showed star maps that seemed to pulse with life, and crew members moved with the precision of a military force that had perfected their duties over decades of isolation. "Captain Kane," Cross said, somehow knowing his name despite no introduction, "your discovery of our position was not accidental. The Dominion has been monitoring human expansion into the galaxy for generations. We represent the true vanguard of humanity's expansion, a force created not for exploration, but for protection." Lieutenant Commander Torres frantically worked her instruments, trying to understand how their ship had been detected and identified so quickly. Her readings showed technology levels far beyond current human capabilities. The Dominion possessed shields that could deflect entire asteroid fields and weapons that could crack planets. "This makes no sense," Kane muttered to his bridge crew. According to all historical records, humanity's first deep space missions or scientific expeditions. There was never mention of military vessels like this. Admiral Cross seemed to hear him despite the transmission delay. History, Captain, is written by those who survive to tell it. The truth is far more complex than your generation has been taught. The view screen shifted to show the interior of the massive warship. Corridors stretched for what seemed like miles, filled with crew members in environmental suits. The ship was clearly designed for long-term deep space operations with hydroponics, bays, manufacturing facilities, and living quarters that suggested a crew of thousands. 2.5 centuries ago, Cross continued, Earth's governments received intelligence about an approaching threat from the outer galaxy. Not the peaceful alien traders you know today, but something far more dangerous. The Void Hunters, a species that consumes entire civilizations. Ensign Mitchell's hands flew over his communication panel. Sir, I'm cross-referencing our databases. There's no record of any species called Void Hunters in any galactic registry. Cross smiled grimly. Of course there isn't. The galaxy's current inhabitants are the survivors, those who learn to hide, to remain quiet, to avoid detection. The Dominion and her sister ships were humanity's response to early warnings about this threat. The transmission showed weapon systems that dwarfed anything in the current human fleet. Energy cannons capable of destroying moons, shield generators that could protect entire planets, and most disturbing of all, some kind of dimensional drive that allowed faster-than-light travel without using standard hyperlanes. We were not meant to be discovered until humanity was ready, Cross explained. Our mission was to patrol the outer rim, to serve as an early warning system. For 2 centuries, we've kept the Void Hunters at bay, fighting skirmishes in the deep darkness between stars. Captain Kane felt the weight of this revelation. Admiral, if this is true, why reveal yourselves now? What's changed? The old Admiral's expression darkened. Because, Captain Kane, our long vigil is ending. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected massive movement in the void beyond the galactic rim. The Void Hunters are returning in force. And this time, they're not just probing our defenses. The screen displayed sensor readings that showed hundreds of massive contacts moving toward inhabited space. Each signature was larger than the Dominion itself, and they were moving in coordinated formation. Humanity's greatest story is about to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. The truth about humanity's purpose, Admiral Cross gestured to his tactical officer, a woman with silver-streaked hair, whose uniform bore insignia Kane didn't recognize. Commander Victoria Hayes will brief you on our current situation. What you're about to learn will change everything you thought you knew about humanity's place in the universe. Commander Hayes stepped forward, her bearing that of a veteran who had seen things beyond imagination. Captain Kane, your species wasn't supposed to expand this rapidly into galactic space. The original plan called for a much slower, more cautious approach to colonization. The main display showed a 3-dimensional map of known space, with human colonies marked in blue and alien territories in various colors. But overlaid on this familiar map were red zones, vast areas marked as void hunter territory that encompassed nearly half the galaxy. The peaceful galaxy you know today, Hayes continued, exists only because species like the Arcturians and Zephyrians learned to limit their expansion, to keep their energy signatures low, to avoid attracting attention from the outer dark. Lieutenant. Commander Torres looked up from her station with alarm. Commander, our expansion has been anything but subtle. We've established colonies on over 200 worlds, built massive space stations, and our communication networks span half the galaxy. Hayes nodded grimly. Exactly. Humanity's rapid expansion and high-energy civilization has acted like a beacon. Every hyperdrive jump, every subspace communication, every planetary shield grid, all of it creates signals that travel far beyond our borders. The tactical display shifted to show wave patterns emanating from human space, rippling outward into the cosmic void. The implications were terrifying. Humanity hadn't just announced their presence to the galaxy. They had essentially been broadcasting their location to whatever lurked in the darkness beyond. The Void Hunters are drawn to civilizations that show rapid technological advancement, Admiral Cross explained. They don't attack primitive worlds or species that remain confined to single systems. They hunt civilizations that dare to reach for the stars with confidence. Captain Kane felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that humanity's natural tendency toward exploration and expansion makes us a target? Not just a target, Cross replied, the primary target. The Void Hunters see species like humanity as the greatest threat to their existence. We represent everything they despise: rapid adaptation, technological innovation, and the refusal to accept limitations. Commander Hayes brought up new sensor data showing the approaching threat. The force heading toward inhabited space is unlike anything we faced before. Our estimates suggest over 500 capital ships, each one capable of destroying an entire star system. The bridge of the Pathfinder fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. Ensign Mitchell finally found his voice. Admiral, if the Dominion has been fighting these creatures for centuries, surely you've learned how to defeat them? Admiral Cross exchanged a meaningful look with Commander Hayes before answering. We've learned how to survive encounters with their scout forces, yes. But what's coming now isn't a scouting mission or a probe. This is their full assault fleet, mobilized because humanity's expansion has finally convinced them that we represent an extinction-level threat to their dominance. The view screen showed battle footage from previous encounters, the Dominion and her sister ships engaging massive dark vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. The human ships fought with desperate courage, but it was clear they were vastly outnumbered. How many ships like the Dominion are out there? Kane asked. 12 were originally built, Cross replied quietly. 7 remain operational. The others were lost holding the line during major incursions over the past 2 centuries. The weight of this revelation settled over Kane's crew like a shroud. Humanity's greatest achievement, their rapid expansion across the galaxy, had unknowingly signed their death warrant. And now, the full fury of an ancient enemy was bearing down on them, drawn by the very qualities that made humanity unique. What do you need from us, Admiral? Cross smiled for the first time since the transmission began. To do what humanity does best, Captain Kane, to fight against impossible odds, to refuse to surrender, and to prove that even nightmares can be defeated by those brave enough to face them. The fleet that never should have existed, Admiral Cross, stepped away from the view screen as alarms began sounding throughout the Dominion. Behind him, his ancient crew moved with practiced efficiency, responding to threats that had become routine. Over their centuries-long vigil, Captain Kane, we're about to have company, Cross announced as his tactical displays lit up with new contacts. A Void Hunter probe has detected our communication. They're sending an advance force to investigate. Kane watched in fascination and horror as the space around the Dominion seemed to tear open, revealing glimpses of something that hurt to look at directly. From these dimensional rifts emerged ships that defied conventional understanding vessels, that seemed to be crafted from crystallized darkness itself, their surfaces absorbing all light and reflecting nothing. All hands to battle stations, Cross commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced this nightmare countless times. This is not a drill. We have incoming hostiles. Estimate 4 heavy cruisers and multiple fighter screens. Commander. Hayes took position at the tactical station, while other crew members whose faces showed the wear of extended conflict prepared for battle. Kane realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. Humans who had been fighting an impossible war for generations, developing tactics and technologies that officially didn't exist. Captain, Torres called out from her station aboard the Pathfinder. "I'm reading energy signatures from the Dominion. They're off any scale I've ever seen. Whatever they're powering up, it's beyond our current understanding of physics." The ancient Earth warship began to transform before their eyes. Weapon systems that had been retracted into the hull extended outward like the spines of some massive creature. Shield generators created barriers of energy that shimmered with colors that had no names. Most impressive of all, the ship's hull began to emit a soft blue glow that seemed to push back against the darkness of the approaching enemy vessels. The Dominion was built using technology that humanity won't officially develop for another century, Cross explained as his ship prepared for combat. "We've had 200 years to refine and improve these systems through actual battle experience." The first exchange of fire was unlike anything in current military doctrine. The Void Hunter ships attacked with weapons that seemed to bend space itself, creating tears in reality that should have destroyed anything they touched. But the Dominion responded with energy beams that somehow healed these dimensional wounds, while simultaneously striking back at their attackers. "How is this possible?" Kane whispered, watching the impossible battle unfold. Commander Hayes answered while coordinating the defense. "The Void Hunters exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons pass right through them. But human ingenuity found a way to force them back into our reality where they can be hurt." The battle was brutal and beautiful, a dance of technologies that shouldn't exist fighting enemies that defied natural law. The Dominion moved with impossible grace for something so massive, its ancient crew working in perfect harmony despite the passage of centuries. "Captain Kane," Cross called out during a brief lull in the fighting, "your ship needs to return to human space immediately. Warn the colonies, mobilize the fleet, and prepare for the impossible. The full Void Hunter armada will arrive in 72 hours." Kane felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. "Admiral, humanity's current fleet doesn't stand a chance against what I've seen here today. Our most advanced warships are barely a match for a single enemy vessel." Cross smiled grimly as the Dominion destroyed the last of the probe ships. "Then, it's time for humanity to become what we were always meant to be. Not peaceful explorers or cautious colonists, but the species that stands against the darkness when all others fall back in fear." The transmission began to fade as the Dominion prepared to move to a new position. "Captain, humanity's story was never meant to be one of quiet expansion and peaceful coexistence. We are the nightmare that nightmares fear. It's time to remind the galaxy why that's true." As the ancient warship disappeared into the void, Kane realized that everything was about to change. The peaceful age of exploration was ending, and humanity's real test was just beginning. When legends become reality, 3 days later, Captain Kane stood in the command center of Orbital Station Prometheus, humanity's largest military installation. Around him, fleet admirals, colonial governors, and military commanders from across human space had gathered for an emergency session that would determine their species' survival. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane began, his voice carrying the weight of impossible truth, "what I'm about to tell you will sound like science fiction. But every word is verified by sensor logs, tactical analysis, and direct communication records." The massive holographic display showed the recorded encounter with the Dominion and the subsequent battle with Void Hunter forces. Military leaders, who had spent decades studying warfare, watched in stunned silence as their understanding of human capabilities was completely rewritten. General Patricia Stone, head of Colonial Defense Forces, stood up slowly. "Captain Kane, are you telling us that humanity has possessed advanced warships for centuries without any official knowledge of their existence?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, General. The Dominion and her sister ships represent a secret fleet built to protect humanity from threats we didn't even know existed." Admiral James Crawford, the fleet's senior commander, studied the tactical data with the eye of someone who had spent his life understanding military technology. The weapon systems on this vessel are decades beyond our current capabilities. The shield technology alone would revolutionize our entire defensive strategy. Kane nodded grimly. And according to Admiral Cross, we're going to need every advantage we can get. The Void Hunter main fleet will arrive within hours, not days as we originally believed. As if summoned by his words, warning klaxons began sounding throughout the station. Communications Officer Reynolds called out from his post, "Sir, long range. Sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through hyperspace." The main display shifted to show the outer system, where space itself seemed to be tearing open. From these wounds in reality emerged vessels that dwarfed even the mighty Dominion dark ships that seemed to devour light itself, their presence causing nearby stars to dim. "My God," whispered General Stone. "How many of them are there?" "Sensors count over 300 capital ships," Reynolds reported, his voice shaking. "Each one is larger than our biggest space stations." At that moment, a familiar voice filled the command center as Admiral Cross's image appeared on the secondary display. The Dominion had arrived, along with 6 other ancient human warships that shimmered into existence around the station. "Attention all human forces," Cross announced. "This is Fleet Admiral Nathan Cross of the Shadow Fleet. We are transmitting tactical data and battle plans developed over 2 centuries of warfare. All colonial defense forces will integrate with our command structure immediately." Kane watched in amazement as the ancient ships took position around the station. Each one was unique, showing battle damage and modifications that spoke of countless encounters with impossible enemies. These weren't just warships, they were legends made real, crewed by humans who had fought in the darkness so others could live in the light. "Citizens of human space," Cross continued, his voice now broadcasting across every inhabited world. "Today you learn the truth about your species. We are not peaceful explorers who stumbled into a hostile galaxy. We are the storm that breaks upon the darkness. We are the nightmare that nightmares fear." The Void Hunter fleet began its approach, and space around the human position erupted into the largest battle in galactic history. The ancient ships of the Shadow Fleet engaged the enemy with weapons that rewrote the laws of physics, while newly arrived human vessels provided support with conventional arms that had been hastily upgraded with impossible technology. Kane. Cross called out during the battle, "Your people need to understand something crucial. This isn't just about survival anymore. The galaxy has been waiting centuries for a species brave enough to stand against the Void Hunters. Every other civilization learned to hide, to limit themselves, to live in fear." Kane watched as human fighters engaged enemy vessels with a ferocity that surprised even the ancient crews. Colonial defense forces that had never seen real combat fought alongside century-old veterans as if they had trained together for years. "But humanity refuses to hide," Cross continued, pride evident in his voice. "Your expansion, your technology, your refusal to accept limitations, these aren't weaknesses that attracted the enemy. They're the very qualities that make you the species that can finally end this eternal war." As the battle raged across the star system, Kane realized that Admiral Cross was right. Humanity's warship had indeed been just a story until the moment it became their enemy's worst nightmare. The age of hiding in the darkness was over. The age of humanity had begun.